and a retirement in, I don't know exactly how to describe this. You work hard in trying to find out where the money goes, and because we know where it comes from our back pocket. But you work hard to find out where it goes, and nobody works any harder than Edna. So Edna's going to tell us a little bit about where some of your tax money goes.
Yeah, Edna.
Good evening, I'm Edna Willadsen, and I'd like to share with you first how I got started in paying attention to my city and what was going on. I started out with working with Mr. Lusk originally with the smart cars, and it was a love-hate relationship. He absolutely didn't believe anything I said, and I couldn't understand anything he said, so I felt that he wasn't speaking English. So I then decided it was time to find out why these things were being, well, I guess, ramrodded through or forced upon us. And it just one thing led to another, and I find that I really enjoy it, and I know that Lee and the rest of the board sometimes think I'm the Antichrist coming in when I'm writing articles.
No, we don't.
Yeah, I write articles that don't share their same opinion. I speak what I feel is accurate and valid. And I guess I really get on your nerves on many occasions.
Not mine.
But I do enjoy it. I enjoy, I've been an accountant for years. So I spent this last 3 days going through all of the expenditures that they had for the year of 2014, because I wanted to see how much money was spent on getting people in for consultants. Now I realize that the figure may be low because they may not have paid it in that cycle and put it into another year, but it was right at $2 million. Now, $2 million in a year's time, and you take a look at how many employees we have and what they're getting paid, who's coming out on top of this? It sure isn't we the people. And then in there we had $98,000 that was paid to the chamber as a consultant. I don't know what the chamber consult on anything. At any rate, $98,000 is way too much, and too much money unexplained. And then some of the other things that I thought brought to my attention, we had 5 unidentified checks that went out. I don't know, but they were charged to and expensed to for people from consulting. So I have got emails in to the city and trying to get some explanations. I think we're all entitled to this. We need to know what is going on, why this money is being spent, and where is it going, and can the employees be doing more for what we pay them for? And why do we have to rely on consultants? Isn't anybody out there qualified to do the job? And if they aren't, let's look about it, like Dale says. We either get rid of the consultants and make the employees do it, or get rid of the employees and let the consultants take over. But in any event, when we have to pay both to do the same job, unacceptable. That's all I have.
Thank you, Edna. I'm going to tell you what I keep telling Edna. I'm sure glad she's not on my case. How many of you think that you might be running for an office in the next election go around? All right, we know there's 2 here. That's great. And we want you to speak in just a few minutes. So everybody that's got in mind to run for office, we certainly want you to have a chance at the microphone. The next one that we have is Lee Whetham, who is currently a city councilman. He's finishing, or he's in the middle of his first term in city council, and has learned so much or become so restless that he now wants to be a port commissioner.
Worldly.
He's so worldly now he wants to be a port commissioner so he can go to Japan and learn how to do all of these things that they're teaching him over the board. But anyway, this is Lee Whetham, city councilman, and he wants to tell you why he should be the next port commissioner.
I'll follow up some of Dale's comments that my name is Lee Whetham and I'm not running for the county line. I want to follow actually some of Shoona's earlier comments eventually here as I go through my notes, but again, to introduce myself, it's pronounced Whetham. My name is Lee Whetham. I currently hold position 2 on city council. 2 years ago I went on the campaign trail, and other than Paul Gottlieb saying I was seated in January of 13, January of 14, I was seated in December of 13. So I want to count that extra month for whatever it's worth. I guess probably I'll follow through with another comment that we've got freshman senators from either side of the aisle that have either made it to the presidency or are considering running or are running for president. So I do have political ambition. I actually, if I'm successful in this political life, I actually wouldn't mind going to Olympia to represent everyone here. So I understand that this is a stepping stone process from what I know of politics. So here's my pitch. Right now, with what I'm doing, you have to have a backup job. So my past history is I'm a 25-year member of the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union. And during that 25 years, for 4 years, I had an office and a training center in Sequim. And during that time, I became exposed to politicians on union matters. So again, during that exposure, I found that I liked being involved in politics. I especially liked the chance or the opportunity to help my neighbors get into an apprenticeship. That's really my heart and soul about apprenticeship. It's a proven business model in Europe, yet the US hardly ever uses it. What I'm really familiar with is with the building and construction trades. And again, that's where my background is. So I ran on using what's called an apprenticeship utilization requirement being adopted by the city council, and within 3 months last year of me taking office, we actually discussed this as a city council and we voted on it. And going into that vote that night, I couldn't look anybody in the eye and say I'm going to be successful in getting 4 out of 7 people to support this. But it ended up being a 7-0 vote in support of apprenticeship. So as I roll forward on this next campaign, I'm not backing off my apprenticeship utilization. And I would like to see the port adopt this also. From my background of, again, being involved with apprenticeships, it's really the only legal way that we can ensure there will be a local workforce involved in a local construction project. Theoretically, the awarding public agency has to go to what they call the lowest responsible bidder. Well, that's got nothing to do with a bidder from Washington State. In the old days, there were the Davis-Bacon rules that were enacted, which is now known as prevailing wages. And this was actually to prevent job site raiding, primarily the southern companies coming north and working for the larger dollar amount on the check. So they made these prevailing wages. Well, now that they have prevailing wages that keep up with the area, it prevails in the area, there's still companies that come from out of state. And currently, the way the low responsible bidder language is, they can bring their entire workforce. And unless this apprenticeship is adopted into a policy of the different awarding agencies, again, every single job of that job site can go to Florida, Oregon, anything but a Washington State resident. So again, I really believe in that. So going down my notes a little further. The other thing by having a local workforce, there's a lot of studies that show that the local workforce, that these dollars will actually circulate up to 5 times in a community. And in that way, it helps the area small businessmen. So again, that's another thing of part of this apprenticeship. You know, when we look at the biomass and what happened downtown, I actually supported that, thinking that we're going to get some local workers, but it ended up that the majority of that workforce came from the South again. Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, and there was one more. And they paid those guys $25 an hour, period. They did get overtime, but they worked like 7/12s there towards the end on that project. So another example again of an out-of-area workforce. Oh, I guess probably, I'm trying to read without my glasses, so you guys are going to have to put up with me here. I'm gonna have to break down. Another thing too is in my past, when I actually did have an office and a training center in Esquim, I was the leader that fought against the Elwha restoration. And the point that I fought against was the out-of-area workforce that was brought in. There's, you know, when the National Park Service talks about how much this restoration cost us, they like to throw around the figure of $350 million. Well, the fact of the matter is that's only the construction projects that were let in knocking down and putting the various new water plants on the Elwha now. The fact of the matter is there's probably enough people to fill this room that are federal employees that are going to study this river for the next 20 years. They started in 1992, let's not forget that. So when you talk about $350 million, in my opinion, that's the tip of the iceberg of actually what the federal government is going to invest in this Elwha River restoration. I don't know, everyone here, if you're on the left or the right side of the aisle, but again, I like to think that I'm a reformed protester. I'm the last guy that set up an inflatable rat in town against the out-of-area workforce. The big multinational corporation that came in and got the large portion of the Elwha water plant, the industrial water plant. I spent 2 weeks and I studied their history, and they ended up being bought out by a Midwest company. It was crazy how the wheel, I called it the wheel of death, how these corporations put their companies together. And this was a classic contractor that did exactly that. The straw that broke the camel's back, though, is when they brought in the 20 Guamanian carpenters. I found that so hard to believe when I know, union or non-union, I know we've got a totally capable force of carpenters available, readily available in our local area. And that was really the thing that sent me over the edge, was when I found out about them. They tried to deny it. Then when they did actually admit to it, well, we brought in a few. But again, I did a lot of investigation, and there were about 20 Guamanian carpenters that were brought in specifically for that project. So following up on Shoona's spiel, I wanted to, as a 2-year council member, public office, I wanted to, anyone that's considering, I wanted to give some advice or something to think about running for public office. And probably the top of my list is to have a thick skin. People have asked me how I feel about serving in public office. My answer has always been, after that union job, this doesn't hurt at all. The other one too is know how to use Robert's Rules of Order, because all of your public meetings are going to be ran this way. Don't be afraid to challenge whomever is conducting the meeting using this avenue. Another one is having a passion for serving in public leadership position. Have several reasons in case you're successful in resolving one. If you're successful in being elected to public office, you owe the public your reasons for voting a particular way. Be prepared. The other one, don't expect to make any money in public office. You'll be lucky to break even with the long hours of research needed on issues before the body. Another one is, if you're thinking about a campaign, get a campaign manager first before you file or publicly announce. Another thing that Shoona touched on was figure out your campaign financing. Will you stay below 5,000 or go above? You'll have to be prepared to answer this when you file with the State Public Disclosure Commission. If you go above the mini reporting limit of 5,000, then you need the campaign treasurer to track your campaign finances. I'm not sure if that's a weekly or a monthly. Is it weekly, Shoona?
A weekly to turn in your C4s?
Yeah. When you go above the 5,000, when you go full reporting, is it a weekly or monthly reporting?
Is it weekly?
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Weekly?
it's monthly.
So it's a lot of work. So in other words, really, in my opinion, you should have a treasurer, but I guess it depends who you talk to. I guess online now it's easier to do, but
If you download the Orca program that they have, I did mine by myself. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Every evening after work, I went home and I worked again. So it is tough, but once you get it down pat on what you have to do, it automatically tells you when you have to file all of those C1s, the C4s, the F1s, all of that stuff comes up, and it does really walk you through everything. And I think Colin's right on that. It goes weekly, but then it goes monthly, depending on what section of your campaign you're in. Are you getting closer to the election time? Then you're doing it all the time, because a lot of time people are collecting more funds at that time and spending more money. So then you have to report a little bit more often. But at the very beginning, I'm pretty sure it's a monthly thing at the very beginning.
okay, thank you. Until filing week is over, I have several positions right now I'd like to share with everyone at this point of my campaign for Port Commissioner District 3. I support the following issues: returning to a predictable harvest cycle of our forests on the peninsula and addressing the arrearage of these timber tracts using political pressure not only on the State Department of Natural Resources but the U.S. Forest Service. I support negotiating a long-term lease or sale of port property with platypus. I support continuing the cleanup efforts within our harbor. I look that this possibly could be an issue in our campaign, the general campaign coming up. One thing that I learned in attending the Port Commission cleanup put on by the Department of Ecology, I've always assumed the port was under, or not the port, I should say the harbor, Port Angeles Harbor was under one general cleanup, but is there up to 7, Colleen? I had no idea. There's 7 different cleanups within the harbor, and that's a big area. So, and there's different PLPs that are called potential liability partners. So there's each cleanup has different partners involved. So it's going to be something big in order to continue on that. Another thing too that I'm ready to prepare tonight to talk about, which again I think is going to affect City Council, Port Commission races, but we need to resolve the Lincoln Park issue, where there are trees growing into the flight path of the airport. Unless there's a better way financially, these trees will have to be removed and replaced with a lower height variety. If we're ever going to get a long-term flight provider up there at the airport, these trees are going to have to be resolved. I know we're going to go through a difficult conversation, but at the end, it's the only thing that makes economic sense, in my opinion. We can't extend the runway without a very large dollar amount. So the way I see it now, from what I've gathered, and this is something I campaigned on, we were only talking about 8 trees 2 years ago. We were only talking about 8 trees 2 years ago, but really we should be talking about that entire Lincoln Park. I've already stated my position. I would like the port to adopt an apprenticeship utilization requirement on, again, construction projects over $1 million. And I do support the continued development of the composites manufacturing campus. I've got one question that I'd like, if you guys could maybe approach me tonight or even go on the city website. I'd like to see every seat for the city council. I'd like to see 2 or more people run for that. And from what I've gathered, there's either not enough pay or other people are interested in the health care plan. And I'll be a voice. I don't know if it'll carry anything. If I could come to a consensus, I would like to push this before filing week. Maybe that will spur further interest. But again, you're not going to get rich. You're going to be lucky to cover your costs. But again, I would like to see, I have the political bug, I like politics, so I would like, the thing is a way to get the younger folks involved. I'd like to see us grow our own new Derek Kilmer that comes up locally. And the only way that we can do that is by paying the young people to do the stepping stone that I'm trying to describe to you of being at 55. We've done it before, but Derek moved away. Obviously, he figured out a way to make money at a younger age in politics to get where he's at. And look what we've got. We've got a fine young man representing us, but where I'm at from the building trades is we're always looking at the pipeline. And that's filling the pipeline for the next generation. So again, maybe it is the dollar wise for the city council. But again, if you'd send me something or talk to me tonight. But anyways, I'd take questions about my other comments, and let's leave the city council healthcare or dollar wise off, but I'd take questions from anyone here. Yeah.
You know, Lee, you made a comment about how you think that there's a lot of federal money still out there waiting to study the LWAT dams. And I don't know what your source of information on it is on that, but every time I ever hear anybody talking about trying to do research, they're talking about begging to get money from somewhere. So I think I'd watch it if I were you before I made a statement like that.
No, I'm still firmly convinced that there's people that are within the federal government that are doing studies on this, whether it be the tribe. The tribe it's still actively involved. Have they finished replanting? But there are different, we still have the problem of the rainy well and this what do they call it? The debris that's been washed down over the rainy well. We still don't have a for sure answer that we're good to go forever. Somebody has to watch that.
Yeah, the comment was just about your implication that there's a lot of jobs out there that are going to some other people.
Oh, no, I didn't mean that. I mean that the federal government will, as part of the dollar amount for the Elwha restoration, that there are people that will continue to study the Elwha, not in construction projects, but they will continue to study the Elwha. This is the second largest river restoration ever attempted by the federal government, only behind the Everglades, which is still ongoing. So again, there will be people that will be watching this until they retire. I'm not implying that there's jobs, but within the federal government, the scientific community, there's people that are responsible still for this project.
Lee, I don't understand your comments connecting city council and healthcare. What is the connection you're talking about?
Okay, so to be clear, Norma, I don't know if I should push a dollar amount. Okay, so let's just back up a minute. City council pays $650 for mayor, $600 for deputy mayor, and $550 for a regular council member seat. That's gross.
Per month.
Per month. Should the dollar amount monthly be upped, or should we keep it at that rate and provide a health care package?
Okay.
What's it going to take to bring some more people interested? My first thought was health care, because generally when people retire at 62 until 65 and Medicare kicks in, you don't have health care for a 3-year period. But that's kind of being, I'm looking at a certain pie, and maybe that's not the right way to go. Certain age group, so.
Thank you, Lee.